Odell Beckham Jr. rehabbing from that torn ACL is doing well. Posted some video of himself working out, and he looks very good. Now the question is, is the Browns' offense better with or without Odell Beckham Jr.? And Andrew Berry addressed that. And, the offense took off in the second half of the year. Odell happened to be out. Here's what Berry had to say on the situation.
In terms of, call it the first half and the second half of the season, I do think that there's just an element of our offense just evolved over the course of the year. I think part of that is just chemistry, time on task, you name it. I think that's really independent of Odell. I've said, multiple times, Odell's a good football player. He acclimated nicely with our program, with Kevin, with his teammates. And quite honestly, I just want as many good football players on the roster as possible. He's dynamic.
Andrew Berry talking about Odell Beckham Jr. rehabbing from his ACL. D-Man, when you look at that, I think Beckham would have made a difference in the Kansas City game. He would have opened up the field a little bit for the run game, would have at least threatened Matthew so that Matthew couldn't cheat up like he did.
David, once again, I agree with you. And I've made it known I'm not the biggest Odell Beckham Jr. fan. I think he's a lot of a lot of me first. But that said, what you hear coming out of the Browns locker room is that he is the teammate's teammate, the consummate pro. We know his work ethic is great. I've never questioned that. I've just always wondered, when he's out there, is he worried about his touches as opposed to winning games? His teammates would swear that all he cares about is winning. All right, if I'm going to take the teammates at the word, and Beckham, of course, says the same thing, I would like to see Odell Beckham Jr. back here next year if he can, quote unquote, take the top off the defense and keep defenses honest, as you spoke about with Kansas City. It was pretty obvious to anybody who was watching that the Kansas City Chiefs had a speed advantage over the Browns on both sides of the ball. Now, when you're looking at the Chiefs' offense, you say, well, of course they're going to have a speed advantage because they have Tyreek Hill, who's the fastest man in the world, it seems. So that's going to distort things a little bit. But even defensively, you could see how the Chiefs were able to go sideline to sideline or close a lot quicker than the Browns were. Part of it was their own speed, but another part of it is our receiving core as constituted on Sunday, or not the Browns receiving core as constituted on Sunday just didn't have burners. I mean, Jarvis is not a burner, Peoples-Jones is not a burner, and Hollywood Higgins is not a burner. And Baker Mayfield's degree of difficulty on a lot of his throws to those guys has been, higher than it should be. So the Browns do need as much weapons as they have, as many weapons as they have offensively. They need a burner at wide receiver, somebody somewhere. And if Beckham can prove it's him coming off of the major knee surgery, then so be it.
Yeah, I would agree. You not only take the top off, it stretches it out. It makes you defend the entire width of the field and the length of the field as well. Well, I had said that yesterday about I thought Beckham would really make a difference. And we have another voicemail of Truth and Reason. Ron, who doesn't necessarily agree with me.
Last night, a comment was made that the Browns needed a long ball threat of Odell Beckham back. I agree we need a long ball threat, but Odell with his strong personality and having Baker Mayfield with his strong personality, I don't think that combination will mesh together well ever and will disrupt the progress of the team. We need a player like Landry with long ball threat potential. Hopefully something can be worked out.
All right, that's Ron. And
wait, Dave, can Brian please play the first 15 seconds of Ron and tell me what legendary Cleveland Indian does that sound exactly like?
Hi, Dave. This is Ron Byer. Last night, a comment was made that the Browns needed a long ball threat.
Who is that, Dave? From the great Bob Feller. That was Bob Feller if I didn't know any better. Oh, my goodness. He sounds exactly like him.
Now, here's what I would say, though, in answer to Ron's thing. I can't argue that Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham have not developed the chemistry. They really haven't had a lot of time on the field together. You know, the first year Beckham was really coming back from an injury and didn't go to OTAs, and they didn't get the time in. This year there was no preseason. So I get it, but I think you're putting 1 and 1 together and coming up with 11 if you say they just can't develop chemistry. I think you need to be on the field to develop chemistry, and they just haven't had enough time on the field.
Yeah, you can make a case both for and against Baker, with Beckham without, because with him, as you said, Dave, they haven't had time to develop chemistry. They certainly haven't had time under Kevin Stefanski to develop chemistry. Beckham was doing his job in Cincinnati when Baker threw the pick, and then Beckham tried to run the interceptor down and wound up tearing up his knee. So no fault of Beckham there. On the other hand, you could say that it's not necessarily a coincidence that that Mayfield threw 2 picks the remainder of the year after Beckham went down, and you say, okay, well, he didn't have to worry about force feeding Odell, and he was able to, spread it around. And if one guy didn't get a lot of touches in a particular game, he didn't have to worry about perhaps getting, somebody in his ear saying, hey, you got to get me the ball. You got to get me the ball. Now, that assumes or presumes that Beckham does that. I thought he did, but his Browns teammates swear that he doesn't. So in the absence of finding some rookie phenom or some free agent or a guy on the draft who runs a 4.2 40 that can help you, why not run Beckham out there next year and see what happens?
Yeah, I think it opens up, slip screens and all kinds of things in this offense too, that you have to have a guy like Beckham to make them work and make them effective.